Welcome to Inside the Indians, your source for insider information on the Tribe. Stay with us as we bring you the latest about the players, managers, and people behind the scenes at Victory Field. Now here's your host, the longtime broadcast voice of the Indians, Howard Kellman.
Hi everybody, I'm Howard Kellman. Welcome to Inside the Indians. On today's show, Indian skipper Brian Esposito, pitcher JT Brubaker, and CEO and board chairman Bruce Schumacher. Back with Espo on the home of the Indians, WHMB TV 40. Brian Esposito, the manager of the Indianapolis Indians, is our first guest this season on Inside the Indians. Brian, great to see you. Tell us about your offseason.
Good to be back. It was a good offseason. Once I left Pittsburgh, went back down to Florida for a little bit, saw the baby bucks down here in Instruction League for a few days, and then I headed back up to New York, saw some family, saw my new nephews, and then just, did some traveling around, and here we are.
How do you feel about this team?
I am excited to see these guys come out and play. It's a good blend of players. We got some guys that have been around for a little bit, some veteran players that are bringing some good energy, some good leadership, and then we have a really good group of some young, talented, enthusiastic young players that I'm just excited to see how they blend and go out there and play.
We talked to JT Brubaker on the show as well, and he had a really good year for you last year.
Yeah, he came up. It was a pleasant surprise to see how he was acclimated to AAA for the first time. He really took the experiences and the lessons he learned, and he carried that into spring training. He had a really good spring training in Major League Camp. He's a new addition to the 40-man roster. So I look forward to seeing how he carries his spring over and just continues to compete as he pushes to the big leagues.
It's really nice to see all these good-looking young players here.
Yeah, it's very refreshing to see how well we did as an organization drafting some of these guys, and to watch them steadily climb the ladder. And here they are. They're a phone call away. They have some seasoning that they need to get done, and there'll be some times where it'll be tough for them, but there'll be some really good times where they show why they're as talented as they are.
A lot of good players, as we said. Let's talk about the left side of the infield in Cole Tucker and Brian Hayes. Please tell us about them.
Again, two young players, very talented, very good on the defensive side. Cole Tucker brings an extreme amount of enthusiasm and leadership to the clubhouse. Hayes is more very businesslike and just goes about his business the right way. The two are a good tandem together, not just on the field but in the clubhouse as well, and they mean business. They're here to try to help our team win and move on to the big leagues and help them win.
I remember you telling me about Brian Hayes last year, what a phenomenal defensive player he is.
Yeah, really good third baseman. Makes everything look really easy, but he puts a lot of good work out there as well. So he just doesn't take his talent for granted. He goes out and he really works on some things.
And some good young outfielders too.
Yeah, Brian Reynolds, and we saw Martin last year, so it'll be interesting to see how he rebounds from last year. He got his feet wet a little bit last year, and he struggled at times, but he pulled through, and now he's a new addition to our 40-man roster as well. And Brian Reynolds, coming from AA, he had an injury early in last season. He recovered well from a hamate, surgery. He's another talented outfielder. He can run well. He can swing it from both sides of the plate, and he's got a really good arm. So I'm excited to watch him play.
Looks like you got some speed on this team.
Yeah, we have some guys that their speed has played in years. Statistically, Cole Tucker steals some bags. Martin steals some bags. Reynolds actually has some pretty good speed. He hasn't unlocked that base stealing threat yet, which is something that we're going to push and we're going to work on this year. And then the guys around the infield will be able to move. Kramer, Hayes, and even Will Craig, when they don't pay attention to him, he's looking to run. So we got a good group of guys that like to play some winning baseball.
You made a really good point about Brian Reynolds, and it's so important for a young player to be able, if he has speed, even if he doesn't, he can still learn to steal a base and help your team.
Right, yeah, it's very important. It's just taking advantage of your defenders and pitchers that aren't very quick to the plate. So to have that in your tool belt, to be able to change a game or how someone's going to be pitched at the plate, it's crucial to this game.
What was spring training like?
It was a little bit different this year. Second time around after being in AAA last year and spending the majority of the spring in Major League Camp, you got to see how things were worked and how they operate and what they're really getting these guys prepared for. This year was a step closer in that direction. So we really know what it is that they're preparing these guys for and how they want to go about it. it was good. It was a really good spring. A lot of our young guys showed up really well, and they competed really well as well.
You're down there for quite some time. Are the guys itching to come north after a while?
There's a point in time where the luster of being in spring training at Major League Camp kind of wears off a little bit as those guys, either start to get optioned out or they're told that they won't make that club, and they start to go out to minor league camp where, they want to get their season started, and they want to head up north, and they want to get the ball rolling so that they have an opportunity to start, playing some meaningful games, as well as, put themselves in a position to help our Major League club win. The guys that make the club in the big leagues, they look to get out of there as well. But, for the minor league guys, once you get told you're not making that club, the push to get up here and start playing.
Thanks, Espo. Best of luck. That's Brian Esposito on WHMB TV 40. Indianapolis Indians pitcher JT Brubaker, our next guest on Inside the Indians. And I guess the first thing, just at your appearance, we can say things are different now from the Indianapolis Indians and the Pirates' perspective on the minor leaguers.
Oh yeah, we're able to grow some facial hair this year, so pretty nice there, just a little more open and relaxed.
You're glad you're able to do that, you're saying?
Yeah, it's definitely something we don't have to worry about coming in, whether or not we need to shave every day or not. It's just we can go about our day and get ready for the game.
You had a terrific season last year, starting in Altoona and coming to Indianapolis. Tell us your thoughts, JT, when you look back at it.
It was a great year. Wanted to originally break camp here, but ended up going to Altoona and just kept my sights on getting better and preparing for when I got the call to come here. And then when I got here was just to keep the same mentality and focus on what I needed to focus on.
You mentioned getting better. Tell us about that and how you get better.
Just going into everything before the game. That's how to get better. It starts with the throwing program, and then from there your side work, working out in the weight room, just making sure you're staying healthy, getting in the training room, just all the behind the scenes stuff that a lot of people don't see is how you get better.
You mentioned the side work, and that's between starts, you'll work on the side, throw a bullpen session. I would think during the course of a year, those things can really help you.
Yeah, they can. From start to start, for instance, say you go out and changeup wasn't on. Next side, you can go out and you can really focus on the changeup and get the feel for it. And even before the side, and the throwing program, like when you play catch, you can throw it.
Now, do you play catch every day?
Yes.
It's interesting because they want you to keep your arm loose, I guess.
Yeah, they want us to keep it loose, but it's also a feel thing. Go out and get what you need depending on what your arm's telling you.
And how long will you play catch for every day?
About 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes.
And what about when you throw a bullpen on the side? How long will that be for?
About 32 pitches, so anywhere between 8 to 10 minutes maybe.
When you prepare for a game, you warm up in the bullpen. Tell us how many pitches you throw then. And
around the same, about 32, 34 pitches, and then from there it's just making sure I got a feel for things in the beginning and then working on just what I need to work on going into the game.
Will you approach, let's say you're getting ready to pitch on a given night, and in April the weather's cooler, will you approach things differently in the bullpen in April than you may do in July when it's 85 degrees?
Yeah, depending on how the body's feeling and depending on what my body's telling me. Right now, with the sun being out and feels like it's 60 degrees outside, probably go about the normal routine. But if it's in the 30s and stuff like that, take a little bit of extra time to get your body loose and get a good sweat going before you get out into the game.
And most pitchers prefer cooler weather. I know hitters like it warm.
Yeah, definitely for me, pitchers, at least me, like to throw in cold weather. Hitters, they get tense, not tense, they get tight, cold, hard to swing the bat, especially if you get one off the handle. They'll be feeling it for a little while. So definitely an advantage when it comes to colder weather for pitchers.
JT, tell us a little bit about your philosophy of pitching and your approach to hitters.
I just attack them. No pitch taken off, always going right at them, pitching in, making them uncomfortable, and just trying to keep them off balance. Other than that, just let the game tell me what to throw after that.
And what pitches do you throw?
4-seam, 2-seam, changeup, slider, and curveball.
Now, a four-seam fastball, one that is thrown across the seams, generally can be thrown at a greater velocity than a two-seamer.
Yes, just because of the spin rate of the ball. It can cut through the air a lot quicker.
So do you throw a four-seam in a certain situation, a two-seam in a certain situation?
Yes and no. If I'm behind in the count and I need to execute a pitch down and away, four-seam. But if, for instance, like say I'm 3-1 and I know the guy's wanting to swing righty, nice two-seam that runs in on him, get a nice 3-1 ground ball or pop-up or something.
That double plays the pitcher's best friend.
Yes, it is.
You got the opening night assignment this year. There's a lot of prestige in being named the opening night starter.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's an honor. And for us to open up in Columbus is nice too. I'm gonna have a lot of family there who haven't got to see me pitch quite a bit, here and there a little bit last year. But for them to watch first game of the year, it's going to be special.
Now, you grew up in Springfield, in the greater Springfield area. Tell us about playing ball and growing up there.
High school coming up, I mean, it was like playing in the backyard, just having fun. And then eventually went to Akron and played, and that's where I started to learn more of the game of pitching, the pitching side of the game. And then rest is with the Pirates.
Well, Springfield is off Interstate 70.
Yes.
Is that pretty much Cincinnati Reds territory?
It's a little bit of a mixture. Majority of it's Reds country, and then your other, I'd say fourth to maybe pushing a half would be Indians.
And this year they're instituting a change with the baseball. They're using the Major League Baseball at the AAA level, which they haven't done before. Can you tell us about the difference in those two baseballs?
So with the minor league ball that we used last year, the seams are a little bit higher than the balls this year, and the balls vary in tightness of what the baseball is wound or when it's stitched together. Big league ball is wound a lot tighter. It can fly a little bit further, but at the same time, pitchers can also get more movement on it. So it's give and take in both directions for hitter and pitcher.
Well, JT, I thank you very much. I congratulate you on all you've achieved, and we wish you the best for another terrific season in 2019.
Thank you, Howard.
That's JT Brubaker. We'll have more on the home of the Indians, WHMP TV 40. Schumacher, Indianapolis Indians CEO and board chairman, our next guest on Inside the Indians. And Bruce, you've been in that role for several years now. Tell us how things are going.
I think things are going really well. We have an outstanding staff. Randy does a great job in the day-to-day administration of them, and I'm really happy with it. What I wanted all along was for it to be pretty seamless, that fans and people that follow the Indians to just have it be business as usual, and I think it has been.
Tell us about the communication between you and Randy Lewandowski on a daily basis.
Well, we talk fairly regularly. He has a very wide berth to do what he needs to do. He and I sit down by appointment at least once every 2 weeks, but more often than that, we poke our heads in each other's office. And I think we're 95% of the time we look at things the same way anyway.
Your father, Max, is now board chairman emeritus. Started working for the Indianapolis Indians in 1957. How's Max doing?
He's doing well. I think a lot of people know that he 2 years ago, July, he had a stroke, and that's slowed him down a little bit. But he still enjoys coming out here, and he and my mom, Judy, are doing great.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. And Max is involved as being a book is being written.
Yeah, that's supposed to be out by the end of April. A book that he has worked on with Mark Monteith. And I know you had some participation in it, trying to fill in some gaps, some things that you remember that maybe that he didn't and that Mark Monteith couldn't find, as I did some of the same kind of work. I actually just got the final proof of it sent to me this morning, so I'm trying to get through that. And I think people are really going to enjoy it. Anybody who's spent any time with him knows how many stories he has. and I think we managed to get most of them down in this book, and I'm glad we did.
So it'll be called Extra Innings?
Extra Innings of My Life in Baseball.
That's terrific, absolutely terrific. And you grew up with your dad working for the Indians around the old ballpark.
Well, I did, and what a great experience for a kid to do everything from working on the old scoreboard to ushering to taking guys in the press box, food and drink, to running a video camera for the Reds behind home plate. Pretty special to have the opportunity to do that growing up.
When you mention the scoreboard, I think of George Foster, and he is one of 3 former Indianapolis Indians to go on and hit more than 50 home runs in a season in the major leagues. Tell us the story with George and the scoreboard.
Well, so I loved working the scoreboard, but it was really a bad day when the series has changed and you had to move all the team signs around. They were very heavy steel team signs that hung on hooks on the scoreboard, and then we had a rickety about a 15-foot ladder that I would go up and down and try to move these things around. And I wasn't the strongest kid. I think I was maybe 13, 14 at the time. So George Foster's jogging in the outfield, and I can see him kind of looking at me over my shoulder. I think he thinks I'm going to kill myself. And finally he stops and he says, "Would you like some help with that?" And I said, "Sure, I'd love some help with it." So we finished changing the scoreboard that day with George actually on the ladder and me handing him signs.
That's absolutely terrific. George Foster played here in 1973, and in 1977 he hit 52 home runs with the Cincinnati Reds and was the MVP. And speaking of guys who hit more than 50, Roger Maris did it, and Jose Bautista, who played for us 2005 and 6, did it in 2010 with Toronto.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Tell us your thoughts as we embark on another season.
Well, this is a great time of year. I mean, you come out of the NCAA basketball tournament, which a lot of us enjoy as well, and now it's our time. And all the things you do in the off season to get ready determine how successful you are once the season starts. And I like the way we're set up promotionally and with our staff. I like our team. I think I was in Bradenton for a week and got to see them play a little bit. There aren't many years when you have 4 young prospect infielders, and we do this year with Cabrian Hayes at third and Cole Tucker at short, Kevin Kramer at second, and Will Craig at first. So it's a really interesting team, veteran arms in the bullpen. I look forward to getting them on the field and seeing how we stack up.
In all the years you followed the ball club, do you have a favorite team?
I think the way the '86 season went was awfully special. To be in the 7th game of that championship series against Denver and going to the 9th inning behind 4-1, and frankly to figure that you probably beat, and looking over at the Denver people who were at the game and thinking, well, they're going to celebrate and we're going to be disappointed, and then to have that inning play out like it did, and Billy Moore to get the hit that won the game. Another funny thing about that night was, we didn't have a particularly large crowd, and I was in charge of staffing game day employees that night. And when we won like we did, everybody was so excited that they just pushed those gates open at Busch Stadium, which was all you had to do was just push on them, and they flooded out on the field. And I'm like, I don't have enough security guys to handle this. And then I thought, you know what? This isn't New York. They'll mill around, they'll slap some guys in the back, and they'll go home. And that's what happened.
I think we had about 3,200, but it sounded a lot bigger than that.
Well, it's on a night when a crowd is so into a game, like they are in playoff games, you can tell the difference in that kind of a crowd versus a regular season crowd.
And what a great run. That was the first of 4 straight championships.
It was, and we got kind of spoiled there for a while in that Montreal era with those great players and Joe Sparks and Razor Shines and all the greatness of that time, which is very well detailed in the book, by the way. Here we are now. We haven't won a championship since 2000, and we got so spoiled there in the 80s, and we would not have thought about going 19 years between championships.
You mentioned that era there in the late 80s and Joe Sparks, and in the years you and I have been here, we've had one man who's made it to the Hall of Fame, and that's Randy Johnson, who pitched all of '88, part of '89 here, and there was a story involving you and Randy.
Well, Randy had injured himself. He had been mad coming out of a game and took his right hand, fortunately, or it would have been a more serious problem, and smashed it on the bat rack and broke his hand. And so when he was coming back, he was wild anyway, and coming and rehabbing, there weren't a lot of guys who really wanted to stand in against him in a simulated game. So I think it was Joe Sparks' idea, well, can we come up with a mannequin to have stand in there to make it look like a real hitter? So I made a few calls and department stores and such, and finally got one from the Children's Museum. And the guy said, now we'll get it back in good shape, right? I said, oh yeah, of course. So we put a hat on it. I think they even put a little eye black on it, and a jersey, and we set it in there, and it was going fine for a while. And then Randy got a little wild and drilled a hole in it, and I think maybe more than one. And I thought, well, and Joe Sparks and everybody thought it was pretty funny, but they weren't the ones who had to take it back to the Children's Museum. Unfortunately, the Children's Museum people were really very gracious about it, and we didn't have any issue. They didn't need to be compensated for a dented mannequin, but yeah, I'll always remember that about Randy.
Bruce, thank you so much. Best of luck this season.
Thanks, Howard. Appreciate it.
That's Bruce Schumacher. We'll have more on the home of the Indians, WHMB TV 40. To our guests, Brian Esposito, JT Brubaker, and Bruce Schumacher. See you next week on Inside the Indians.